We are being buried in debt, and the fact that we're on the cusp where the bond market will now run your country. What I've learned in this time of being in Congress is we're so addicted to spending and not telling people the truth of how much we borrow. And this isn't a little rounding error here. You're talking trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that we owe. The Pentagon, I think, just went its 9th year and cannot pass an audit.
I know, that's
It's
crazy.
called unauditable. What would happen if the way you stop fraud and cheating, what's happening in Minnesota and so many other places in the country, isn't a building full of auditors and lawyers?
My wife just absolutely loves you. She's just, and you had a little baby with you. I guess that's just
Yeah,
the
my
smallest
3-year-old.
Your 3-year-old. And
Greatest gift God has ever given someone.
right, 3.
3.
You are crazy.
Okay. Do you want the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So get married. My wife's going through cancer treatments, functioning days before our wedding.
Really?
Bless her precious heart. We got her healthy. Tried, health things, the drugs. We weren't going to have children. And we're conservative Catholics. We're old school Catholics. So, it's got to be natural, that as God gave it. And so we start trying to adopt. And after years and years and 3 horrible failed adoptions, one that will, till this day, rip your heart out. Little African-American boy, he's going to be you. He was already just ready to give it hell. And the birth father wouldn't sign off on the birth certificate.
Wow.
And the lawyers scuttled the adoption.
Did you already have the baby with you, or the child with you? You were like fostering?
3 whole days.
Oh, 3 days.
And it's amazing. Something like that really can just scar you up.
Yeah.
So we became foster parents.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the night, a phone rings, and it's Dr. Friend. Hey, I got a 28-year-old mom, a little girl here. Drugs aren't too bad. Do you want the little girl? And we raced down the next morning and adopted her. 3 years ago, out of nowhere.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
I'm getting these text messages. Some social worker is losing her mind and needs you to call her. And I'm just assuming one of my family members needs bail money or something. You don't know my family. And she picks up, finally, are you going to pick it up or not? I'm going, what the? And seriously, you don't know? Your little girl's birth mom walked into the hospital in West Phoenix,
Wow.
drugged out of her mind, and had a little boy. He's only like 5 pounds.
Wow.
He's a mess. And she kept referring to the little boy as it, which I thought was remarkably cruel.
It's crazy.
So to prove I'm married to an unusual woman, I say, hold on for a second. Because remember, we just both turned 60. I call my wife and say, honey, you won't believe what we have to pick up tonight. And she goes, blank, blank, David, what did you buy at Costco again? And so the funny part of that is now we've always told our kids babies actually come from Costco. Olivia's birth mom has had a little boy. They're trying to detox, but he's in pretty rough shape, but they need to free up the NICU seat. Can we go get him? And she says, okay. And she basically says, I'm off of work in a couple hours. We'll go get him then. No discussion, nothing like that. And we pick up the little boy. He was in rough shape. His first 2 months of life, he was almost never, ever, ever, ever laid down other than a diaper change. Because he couldn't eat. So we took 24 hours a day rotations holding him. Today he's 3. He's already in preschool. He's perfectly normal. He's the funniest little guy you've ever met. And he's joyous. And his big sister and him fight like crazy.
Yeah.
They get into a room and they're like magnets.
Yeah.
But you have these moments of joy. And now you hold public office. And you have to deal with something like, my little boy, you need 104% of his lifetime earnings just to pay federal government pensions. our numbers as a country are so screwed up that we say we love our kids, but the math right now says unless we can get technology and synthetic biology and all these things to create just incredible productivity growth, our kids are screwed.
Mm. On a federal level or local level, like, is it a Arizona thing, or is it a national thing?
It's actually a world thing. Go back about 40 years ago. Fertility rates, number of children being born. Now, some of this is because of abortion policies. Some of it's because of lifestyle and incomes, and all these things came together. So today we have fewer 18-year-olds than we had 20 years ago.
Really?
But double the number that are 65 and up. That's not their fault. It's just, here's the baby boom. And next year we have fewer kids. And the year after that we have so your country, our country, is functionally at zero population growth.
Really?
So part of my responsibility in Congress is I chair the oversight over, Medicare, Social Security, these sorts of things. And you turn to someone like me and say, make the math work. And this isn't a little rounding error here. You're talking trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that we owe that we'll never have.
Wow.
In 6.5 years, Social Security Trust Fund is gone. The Medicare Trust Fund is gone. 6.5 years, we doubled the poverty of seniors in America because they get a 24% cut in their check. And so here becomes one of the things I actually do worry about, and particularly for your audience. How do the people we elect tell the truth and stop an intergenerational conflict where young people realize they're on the line for trillions of dollars of debt, and seniors, they were made promises. They want their benefits. And that's what much of my life over the last decade has been, is trying to come up with creative ways to crash the price of healthcare, to deliver things faster, better, cheaper. And there's hope. Did I mention I'm 64 with a 3-year-old?
Yeah.
So you got to have some optimism. This is America. We've always found a way. But our brothers and sisters all through this country, we need to toughen up, stop talking about the trivial, and start talking about what we are as a people. We're getting older. Getting old is the fastest growing demographic.
Right.
We're going to have a shortage of young people. How are we going to hold society together? And then be willing to do hard things. It's possible. But the political class doesn't like to talk this way.
I know. Why is that? Why, Congressman Schweikert, I don't understand why you and others sitting in a room having this exact conversation, how is that not productive and consistent? Like what you're saying to me seems to be logical common sense, that we have an issue. It's not emotional. It's reality.
It's math.
And we better fix it. And we should be in the lockstep on at least reasonable ways to fix this.
There's the problem. And I'm going to be a little harsh here, when the political class for decades has not told the truth. Someone stole your Social Security. That's not true. It loaned and it's paid back with interest. I mean, it's hard to get up in front of an audience that you want their vote to get reelected and then walk them through the math. I do it, but I've been doing it consistently since the day I got elected. The one gift God gave me is I'm really good at math. And it turns out, I think the public is so much smarter than the politicians.
Yeah.
They really are. Sometimes they don't have, I have a handful of PhD economists that work for me. I chair the Joint Economic Committee. I have a number of lawyers that work for me because I'm doing these crazy oversight investigations into organ procurement and hospice and Medicare Advantage. And pisses off the lobbyists, but that's my job, is to find the truth. You can get in front of people and explain, look, here's what happened. We didn't have enough children. Healthcare costs have exploded. I argue because the way government has managed it is just insane.
Right.
Legalize the technology that would crash the price of healthcare, and then create free markets to create that next generation disruption that makes things go better, faster, cheaper. And you really can do that. And I have lots of examples if you want to geek out.
Yeah, I think that's incredible for people to hear. That there needs to be somebody in positions of power that have common sense. And I think if you put God first, that's the best first step.
It's okay. Let's back up. Let's sort of go to core principles. Do you believe, like I do, the Constitution was divinely inspired?
Yeah.
Somehow the concept of a self-governing people was touched by God.
Right.
A group of people coming together and saying, look, God owns all rights and he's loaned it to these individuals. So the individuals hold all the rights. And we're going to loan a handful of those to government. Not all of them, a handful of them. And it's just like a small lease agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep that in your soul, I would argue so much of what we do in political life is wrong. It may feel good. It may be someone's desire. It may be even someone's need. But that's not what the founding documents instructed us to do.
Right.
And look, if you're a Christian, you have an obligation. Even when they don't make you happy, you have to love your brothers and sisters. Doesn't mean you have to do business with them.
Right.
I have a couple people
literally.
I genuinely do not like in Congress. I still, every night when look, we're old school. I've been, like 3-year-old and 10-year-old. We even do a couple of beads on our rosary every night before going to bed, because I believe you got to have that faith woven through your existence. But it's also got to be part of your belief system when you're doing policy. So now let's take that one step out. What if I came to you right now and said, okay, here's the handful of the biggest crises I see in my society. Give me mathematically honest, moral solutions for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually get there. You just sometimes have to scrap all the crap that the political class often wants to do, or what's really good on social media. So often we engage in our rage instead of our intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Can I take you down a rabbit hole? But
come on with it.
Let's just because I gave a speech on this one yesterday. It was a handful of parents who all had kids or grandkids die of fentanyl. About an hour of some of the saddest I've ever been in my life. Because a couple of these kids had no idea. I've spent the last 5 years working to try to bring a drug to market. University of Houston, it's not, if you go Google fentanyl vaccine, it's not actually a vaccine. It's a drug that lasts for about a year. And it attaches a protein to the narcotic so it can't pass the brain-blood barrier. So you're an officer. You can take this. You don't have to keep Narcan around you because you have a bust. You don't end up in the hospital. But how about the person that's homeless, that's become a fentanyl addict, and they've tried multiple times to go through rehab, and the brain has been rewired by a synthetic drug? What is the morality of our society saying? I'm supposed to love from the moment of conception to natural death. Well, somewhere here in the middle is my brother or sister that's living on the street. What would happen if technology now has made it that I can help them rewire their brain back to semi-normal? And start thinking about those things. So every day in our county, Maricopa County is a massive county, we have 2 to 3 people die of fentanyl.
Every day.
Every day, mostly homeless. how about if the great economic and the great moral solution come together by looking visionary at the technologies that are being developed around us and bring them to the street? So we're hoping by November, December, we're going to have one of the trial sites here in Sunny Slope.
Mm.
But I only use that as an example. What happens if there's actual solutions around us? But you got to take a step backwards and read crazy stuff. Read the engineering manuals, read the synthetic, sign up for all sorts of these blogs and this thing, and you'll suddenly see something saying, this could change people's lives. Let's go
Yeah.
chase it.
And I think that the reason that the people probably don't do it is because it's money. Like
Yeah.
Well, you let me know if I'm incorrect about it. It's money. You have lobbyists. You have these big companies pushing drugs. Some drugs keep you on or in a situation that you're in, or it makes you need another drug that they also sell
It's so much worse than you can ever imagine, Brandon.
I look at. I'm not really deep into the peptide thing, like as far as like going down a rabbit hole. But I see people having life-changing experiences with certain peptides.
Yes.
And they're very inexpensive in comparison to some of the methodology and medicines that they
And
were
the
trying to use.
glutides and some of the others.
Yeah. And like I feel like the government don't want to push it, or they want to. They rather you be sick.
That's why you have to have a society that has. So you have right to try, but that's really for when you're sick. How about right to be healthy?
Right.
Look, it's still your life. God gave you this life. Find ways. Look, I'm a severe asthmatic. I want the right to try things to deal with the lungs I've been given. But let's go to the money. Everything in Washington, D.C. is about money. If you think there's a battle that's really, so often we couch it in, well, that's liberal, this is conservative. Money, money, money. The one I just gave you, that that thing that stabilizes you from fentanyl, being able to, I've already had some rehab centers send lobbyists to my office wanting me to slow down because it will crush parts of the rehab industry. It's about their money. 10, 14 years ago, there was something called Sovaldi. It was a cure for hepatitis C. That's a series of shots. But hepatitis C is if you had a really good time in the 70s. I know you're too young, but that you got to add the informer. Hepatitis C eats away at your liver. Takes sometimes 30, 40 years. They were preparing, these big hospitals were preparing for, let's call it hundreds of thousands of liver transplants. Liver is one of the few organs where you can actually just take parts of it. And they were all upset that there was a cure for hepatitis C. They actually lobbied to slow down access to the drug because of their infrastructure. I'm one of the demigods of telehealth. So a decade ago, 12 years ago, I introduced legislation saying, hey, why can't we use this thing to talk to my doctor?
Right.
Was never, ever, ever, ever going to get a hearing on it. They spent millions of dollars in my congressional races beating the ever-living crap out of me. It wasn't healthcare. It was real estate. It was the people that had invested in the urgent care centers, had bought the emergency rooms, or bought the emergency room doctors. And it was all about how many bodies walk in the door sick. What happens when we've turned healthcare in America into financial engineering, not healthcare?
Right.
Obamacare, the ACA, is actually a financing bill. Medicare for all is actually a financing bill. The Republican alternative. It's a little better actuarially, but it's a financing bill. And this is something I'm truly an expert on. I've spent lots of time trying to break the shackles of stop treating healthcare like it's about the financing and start thinking about how do you help people just have better lives? If diabetes is 33% of U.S. healthcare, why not help people with their weight, with not becoming pre-diabetic?
Right.
Those sorts of things. it's back to my argument. What happens when the solution is also moral
Right.
and it's really good economics?
I think, and I think to your point, people can accomplish both, but it's massive greed. It's like
Yes.
you may make a little bit of money or whatever, but no, people want massive markups on these products. I mean, there's a lot of people. If you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about investing, yeah, of course you invest in the opportunity to have these facilities.
Mhm.
Some people, and I think these not necessarily hospice facilities, but these home care facilities, like that's a good investment. But the
Um,
difference is some people would rather create an environment where their investment accelerates because people are suffering than for them to do the
yeah.
right thing. And it may cause a slight decrease in profitability, but the people are doing better. And I think once you do the right thing, I think the industry will begin to grow in that direction.
Look, I've opened up an investigation into organ procurement.
Mm,
We believe we've found some big hospitals selling American organs to foreigners.
mm,
Absolutely illegal. I've opened up an investigation into hospice. Um, Preliminary, some pretty ugly stuff.
mm.
Medicare Advantage, report after report, and that one's could be $2 trillion over 10 years, making it the single biggest. Let's not call it waste and fraud. Let's call it misalignment. Let's get lawyerly. Um, that's the single biggest in America. You know, just to realign that, we could save a trillion eight. So remember how we're talking about we're borrowing as of today about $85,000 a second.
That's crazy.
Every second,
Crazy.
it is going to crush the average person's retirement. It's also going to crush our kids. You know, remember, borrowing is a tax. A lot of folks despise it when I say this, but it's a tax. It's just a tax with interest that you or a future generation are going to pay for in the future.
Right.
So, can I give you the solution? And what happens when the solution goes back to the beginning of the conversation? If you believe the Constitution is really special, should government be used to become a barrier to entry?
Mm,
Much of what goes on in Washington, the lobbying, isn't, hey, just give us money or pay us more. It's stop my competition.
mm,
You would be shocked how much of Washington, D.C. is a protection racket
mm.
for incumbent protection, not incumbent elected officials, incumbent business models.
Mm.
Don't make me face this. I'll give you an example I've worked on now for years. What happens when you can wear a ring like this? You know, one of the Oura rings, or you've seen the people wearing the Whoops or
Yep.
the Dexcoms, or
Mhm.
where you're actually wearing part of your medical lab right on your body.
Mhm.
The thing you can blow into, it's called a breath biopsy. It's like a flu kazoo. You can blow into it and notice if you have a bacterial infection or a viral infection. The thing that's in your toilet, you urinate on, or the thing you can spit in. What happens when you could have your own medical lab attached to you? And statistically, and this makes people upset, but it's math. Statistically, it's as good as visiting your doctor.
Really?
Should it be allowed to prescribe? Should it be allowed? So the new Apple Watch is an FDA-approved medical device for the heart. In the area that it went through the FDA and got approved, should it be allowed to prescribe?
Mm.
And it makes people a little queasy because that's not the system they're used to.
Right.
But you could also crash the price of healthcare. You could make individuals much more autonomous, where they are responsible for themselves. The fact of the matter is, your data on this is behind an encryption chip. It's safer and more private than sitting in a file at a doctor's office.
Right. Right.
If we're children of God, do I have the right to manage myself? Or am I owned by the bureaucracy? And that embracing of that technology, you can crash the price of healthcare. And if healthcare and interest are the primary drivers of U.S. debt,
Mhm.
you start to make a difference. And you got to give states like Utah credit. Utah just did what's called a sandbox, an experiment, where they just legalized allowing AI to renew your prescriptions.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that work?
There's a series of prescriptions that are considered non-addictive. That someone, if you have hypertension, you need a statin, those sorts of things. Instead of every 90 days having to go visit the doctor, you can put in your data, and the AI says yes, it is rational, and it just renews your prescription, and it's functionally free. It's another example of using the technology to keep brothers and sisters healthier and to cut the cost. Now, would you believe there's going to be some lobbying
Oh,
against
yeah,
those sorts of
100%.
things?
100%.
Just like, my flu kazoo. There's an army of people that hate that because now you don't walk into the urgent
Right.
care center
And waste
sick.
your time. You don't walk in there sick, and you don't waste your time paying a copay for them to just tell you something you could have got. There's been a few times where I have been able to do telehealth,
Mhm.
then go to urgent care, because it's something like, oh, my throat hurt is itchy, and this is what it looks like, or something that's red. He'll take a picture of it. You'll go into a urgent care, and you'll sit down for 30 minutes past when the time
Yeah.
is supposed to be there. Somebody will come in. Like, I'll give you an example. I had it's not tennis elbow or something. It was the
Is
bursa
it from the
sac.
ginormous weight you
Yeah,
little thing?
I wish. It did happen at the gym. I think I bumped it. It was like a bursa sac.
All right.
You know the bursa sac burst, and it was
yes.
like-
Hurts like hell, though.
it hurt, and it was weird, and it was puffy. And I went to an urgent care right down the street, and somehow that urgent care didn't even take my insurance, so I had to pay out of pocket. This lady, all she did was poke it to drain it, but she couldn't drain anything, so she never did anything. And she said, all you need to do is potentially take this and put something, or like wrap it. That's all she did. I could have done that at home.
Yes.
I could have
So-
did a telehealth communication with somebody, or even AI that'll
Okay.
say,
Now you're going the right direction.
here's some remedies.
Okay, now I need you to go to Crazy Town with me for a moment.
Oh, I'm in Crazy Town with
Oh,
AI.
no. Look, I may be a 64-year-old pasty guy with white hair, but I live for trying to get the next generation to have an amazing life. What happens when you're using the telehealth and you're actually not talking to a person? You're talking to your avatar that's been reading the data off the wearables you already have. It knows your latitudinal. It knows you've been having a fever. It knows you just had this. It knows. And you now actually have your own physician. It may be AI, but who's your favorite television doctor? I've always thought of you as more of a Doogie Howser guy, right? That's funny if you never mind. But with that, the avatar can be whoever the hell you want.
Right.
That technology is not cutting edge. It exists already today. And statistically, it's more accurate than a human.
Well, I think that, because what the pushback would be, well, healthcare professionals be out of work. But I don't think so.
There's not enough of them.
Exactly. I think what it does, and it's the same thing I do in my business now. Like, all of these guys that work for me, I don't want to get rid of them. I want them to maximize what they can do with AI. I don't need to have a shortage of people they can do way more 10x the work. Just like a doctor.
Now, I'm going
ahead.
to leap on you. Have you ever done a tour with your podcast of the size of your shop?
I haven't.
For anyone watching, this isn't just a little podcast studio. It's what's the technical term? Oh, yeah, it's actually a pretty big-ass business.
Yeah.
You have businesses all around you you're managing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how impressed I am.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
But look, so what if I come to you right now and say, you're an amazing boss, you have lots of employees around here, and part of what you're going to use, you're going to adopt this sort of technology, give them a Whoop, give them an AI doctor, this and that as part of your healthcare package. And because you kept them healthier,
right,
you're going to make more money.
Right, 100%. And well, I'll save more money because, we cover healthcare for all the employees and stuff like that. And if somehow we can save money in that area too, by not having such a big cost, paying for the medical insurance for everybody in the building.
So now you're going, so this is our healthcare. What if I took you and said, this same sort of concept covers almost everything either in our lives or government?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
If you have any folks out there who, I know you have this freakishly smart fan audience. Hell, it's most of my staff. But go Google something crazy. environmental crowdsourcing Schweikert YouTube. So a decade ago, I did a video trying to explain a concept of, okay, you want to set up a motorcycle paint shop because you're an artistic sort of guy. You got to go get all these permits. You got to get their booth certified. You got to get the air filters. You got to go get a county air quality permit, all these things. What happens if something goes wrong? You don't get caught. Paperwork in a file doesn't make air quality better.
Right.
What happens if you took one of these and had several thousand people in an air quality, or a few hundred, have the little thing attached that's just an air quality sensor? You crowdsource it.
Right.
And that way, if you got guys painting cars in their backyard without a booth, they get caught. But the motorcycle paint shop, if they're following the rules, they never have to deal with government.
Yeah.
They just get left alone. Crowdsource the data instead of how we do it today, where we spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on these towers. And if they go off, they sanction everyone in the area.
Yeah.
The concept right now of using things like that, should every little city, every little irrigation district, every little town, all have a paint striping truck? Why can't you have an app where we all share it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do that for an earth grader. You could do it for the flood control engineer. And it starts to become this concept of you hit a button to ride Uber.
Yeah.
When you go do one of your speeches in other parts, you hit a button, someone picks you up. Why can't we use that same sort of technology to make government dramatically smaller?
Yes, that's what
by
I like
share the assets we have.
That's what I like to hear. I like the government is so bloated, and it takes a lot of our resources.
Huge.
And even when Doge was doing this thing and it used AI to kind of figure out these errors in finances and everything that will take human beings like years to discover.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be, I know a lot of people want to push back against AI. It's too late. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. The question is, will we make it efficient for us and not the government?
A thing of this.
Well, I'm saying the government needs to be efficient, but I'm saying efficient for us to minimize the government.
But look, the Pentagon, I think, just went its 9th year and cannot pass an audit.
I know, that's crazy.
It's called unauditable.
That's crazy.
We have no idea how much stuff we own.
Yeah.
We don't know how many trucks, how many this, how many that. Seriously, we have no idea what the Pentagon owns. For almost 10 years now, I've been doing a piece of legislation saying AI to audit the Pentagon. Now, it's more of what you call a crawler. It goes through and says, oh, this truck somehow ended up in South Dakota. Oh,
Right.
this ended up over here.
Right.
Your ability to go through the documents so you can actually build an inventory list so you can do an audit. What would happen if the way you stop fraud and cheating, what's happening in Minnesota and so many other places in the country, isn't a building full of auditors and lawyers?
Right.
It's the data scientist that bathes on occasion. You laugh. I have one of those that works for me. But it turns out it's in the data, and we now have packages that are incredibly inexpensive. This isn't spending millions of dollars building a data team and this. It's a package you plug in. Here's my $1,200, and it scrubs through and found all your fraud.
Yeah.
Here in Arizona, we've had billions of fraud in our healthcare system. One of these packages would have stopped it because I need to move you to a modern concept. Stop paying fraudsters and then trying to get the money back.
Right.
Never let the money go out the door in the beginning. We can do this.
Yeah.
Would you believe government and the bureaucrats despise these ideas?
I'm not shocked because it's like, it's like the real key is the next generation that's coming up. I really do think if they embrace it and they begin to demand it, then all the people who are resistant of it, they will begin to be out of office and moving on, and we could have something solid happen. AI has been it's scary and weird sometimes if it's not some type of regulation or some type of check and balance. Because sometimes my AI get things wrong, and I'm like, that wasn't quite right. But
you mean when I asked AI about how tall you are, you're really not 9'3"?
Yeah. Yeah, and even with the pictures it makes, it doesn't really understand thoroughly, but it will at some point, and if we can use it for good.
Yes.
Because like the DMV, like I don't want to go down there and talk to these people. Why can't I take the picture? I went
You
all the way.
should be. Oh,
I went all the way down there to take a picture to get my real ID because I was resisting it for I don't know
Oh
how
yeah,
many.
I despise.
I,
Yeah.
I took the picture, and I'm sitting in the office. He do a couple paperwork. He does this and this and that. And then I wasted about 15, 20 minutes of my day. And I'm like, I could have actually done this at my house.
All right.
Somebody could control it and make sure that it's properly managed. But
Do you want to go to Crazy Town with me again?
let's go.
Have you ever done a remodel or built a house?
I have never personally done it, but I've
Okay.
heard of people doing it.
I've actually had meetings with some folks that have designed the program. Here's my plans. I hit the button. It goes into the municipality or the county. It could take a while, 15, 20 seconds. It's red lines. It says, hey, will you accept this change here? Your sprinkler system needed this. We added it. Hit the button to accept it. Great. We're going to reach over to your taxing authority, get you your tax certificate for this construction project. We're going to reach over to the county, get you your dust permit. That might take another 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And you have a building permit in a minute.
Yeah.
The building inspection, I actually had a presentation of and the AI, here's my footings, here's my plumbing, here's my electrical, and you walk it, and the AI is your building inspector. You don't wait 6 weeks for the building inspector to show up. You know, we complain about unaffordability of homes for the next generation. What happens if one of the solutions is wipe out the bureaucracy?
Yeah.
Be able to get the plans and the permit and the entitlements almost immediately, have building inspections that happen when you're ready so you can move on to the next phase of your construction. And in many ways, I would argue, much safer, much more accurate, and much less bureaucratic.
Mm-hmm.
There's things like this that you can look, it's my fantasy, my goal to do these for government, where you make it so the next generation has a chance.
Yeah.
Do your kids have do they have the right to live as well as we have?
Right.
And last year, for every dollar the federal government took in taxes, we spent $1.43.
Mm.
In 33 months, half of all federal spending will go to those 65 and up. Back to our demographic conversation. Instead of crushing so much of our society, how about if we adopt the things that give them a fighting chance? Their wages go up faster. Dealing with the bureaucracy is dramatically less. And we make up our demographic problem by the fact that we've gotten so productive, people's wages go up.
Right.
And you got to be, this is much more than AI, though. Synthetic biology. We're about to have crops that grow a third faster by just fixing the little quirk where, it wants a carbon molecule and it grabs an oxygen. This time it always grabs a carbon because carbons turn into sugars.
Mm-hmm.
By just doing that little tweak, the amount of water, fertilizer, crops. So there's things happening around us. The diseases we're about to cure is almost a miracle.
Mm.
The misery people, we can cure hemophilia, sickle cell anemia. We have cures for these now. 10 years ago, that was a fantasy. How do you keep that going? Because that's the morality of progress, making people's lives better. And it's really amazing economics if you do it the right way.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. I wish that you could run for president.
Yeah, I have enough people who are annoyed with me.
Yeah, but you're running for pretty much the president of Arizona, which, it's not to say you couldn't be a leader in the space as the governor of Arizona, but
I would argue actually doing it at the state level is the place you do it. Because you can do something. I helped a few years ago a Jeff Winiger, who's in the state legislature, really smart young guy, build what's called a sandbox legislation. It says, hey, you can actually do experiments in Arizona and not have the trial lawyers put you out of business immediately. And our original design was for distributive ledger. I have a weird expertise in distributive ledger. But what happens if you can come up with a sandbox that says, hey, Utah's doing it and using AI to renew your prescriptions. Hey, that flu kazoo, if it's hit an FDA level of confidence, where we know it's accurate, should it be for these categories be allowed to order your prescription? Hey, should we be able to do an experiment of your air quality permit for your motorcycle paint shop can come by crowdsourcing data, monitors and those things instead of paperwork in a file cabinet? You can have a revolution in state government if you can be creative and know your math and know your science and be willing to push that. But the really exciting part, I believe you start the next generation of businesses, the next generation of entrepreneurship in your state, because these really smart, creative people can say, I'm going to start a business. And I can do it in Arizona. 50 years ago, you could do it in Silicon Valley. You can't do it today in California. How do we become that incubator of the next generation of creativity?
And you know what's interesting is that the difference between you and other people is I feel like that they are so political, or like they're so into political rhetoric and
Yeah.
talking points that you forget that they're even a human being trying to actually answer human questions, right? It's almost as if I bring another person in to talk about politics, I mean, it's all they're going to do is talk about a talking point, and all of I didn't know what we were going to talk about. I had some couple things planned, but the things that we talk about are more important than talking points. These
Yeah.
are strategic plans that will help our state and help the country change for the better, not the hyperbolic stuff of, all of that stuff does matter, the trans in schools and,
Oh,
and
no,
all that
look,
stuff.
look,
It does matter, but
but-
there is things that I think matter just as much that we never touch because it has to be a talking point political conversation.
How do I get you to run for office?
My wife said never. Unless God came into my living room
I
and
got to
said,
tell you, your
I'm up.
wife would also be brilliant in public
Oh,
office.
she would. She'll
she
get in
is-
trouble, but she'll be great.
Oh, no. I mean, she would burn the castle down,
Yeah.
but maybe it belongs being burned down.
Yeah.
All right, let's step into a place that's a little bit uncomfortable. Why do politicians, sit down with a celebrity like you and have a conversation, and we spend all of our time, talking about what will get you on Fox television tonight?
Right.
Look, all these things are important. I have a little girl who loves soccer. She's in 4th grade. She doesn't belong going on a soccer field and getting the crap kicked out of her because there's someone, it's a different gender.
Right.
She has the right to experience what it's like to be in girls' sport. Okay, we agree.
Yeah.
But going out and spending day and night talking about why do politicians do that? Because it's an 80% issue. The pollsters and the consultants say, talk about this. Everyone will agree with you. But you're talking about the same thing everyone else is.
Right.
You sound like just another one of the cardboard cutouts.
Right.
You stay on script. You don't offend anyone. You get votes. And that doesn't solve the problems of the country. We are being buried in debt. And ultimately it's no one's fault except for the fact that our demographics went against us and now we got to deal with the reality. How about the optimism of find actual solutions?
Right.
And that's hard because a lot of folks get mad at you because the solution you and I come up with may screw up their current business model. And remember our rule, it's always about the money.
Right. So I really want, we obviously every single term that we've been voting in, because obviously you're our congressman, and this time you're not running for re-election,
No.
you're running for governor.
I'm going to try to look.
Re-election in the U.S. Congress, you're running for governor.
I'm going to run.
Arizona.
I'm running for Congress. Excuse me, I'm running for governor, and I gave up running for Congress.
8 terms.
16 years. Can't believe I stayed that long. And look, I've been blessed. People like me, as cantankerous as I am, I don't know, most people don't care, but look, I try not to curse too much, but I upset some leadership years ago. I got thrown off my committee. I was the reason Freedom Caucus started.
Mm.
because I was, I was moving up in financial services. I got made a bunch of people mad by telling the truth, and you get thrown off your committee. And that's how they were going to punish you. Grab the conservative, grab the free market guys, and isolate them so they don't. And so we came together. Now, I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not a populist.
Mm.
And I believe the policy needs to come from here, not from my whims of my day, from my heart.
Right.
Even though there's things that I'm really angry about,
Mm-hmm.
I despise in my society. But the Constitution tells me I don't get to take this person's right away from being an idiot.
Right.
Turns out being an American, you get to be an idiot.
Right.
And what I've learned in this time of being in Congress is we're so addicted to spending and not telling people the truth of how much we borrow and how much is in debt. And the fact that we're on the cusp where the bond market will now run your country.
Mm.
If you can't save Washington, think about the crazy things you could do in Arizona to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
You have water issues, you have power issues, you have fuel issues, you have healthcare issues, you have all these things here. You have a state that's one of the most urbanized states in America because we own so little of our land, but yet rural Arizona is just dying.
Mm.
Some of our tribal communities, I don't know, if you ever want to go up in the Navajo Nation with me, I have friends up there since I was a kid, and I'll take you out to, you'd be fun for having you come chase some sheep with us.
Oh yeah, come on with it.
No, it's an amazing moment to step back and understand how our brothers and sisters live in our own state with us. So over Christmas, my little girl and I, we went up to the tribal communities and we went and installed Starlink satellite dishes.
Oh wow.
Turns out, here's a chapter house. You put up the dish, and that afternoon, I'm technically pretty good at this stuff. I can do one in 45 minutes. And within a couple hours with the repeater, the whole area had broadband.
Mm.
Now all of a sudden, grandma has telehealth.
Yeah.
The little girl here can do schoolwork online.
Yeah.
She can do remote education. So instead of spending a fortune of government money saying, we're going to run a fiber optic line out there that never, ever shows up.
Right. Never.
Turns up a Starlink dish. And overnight, I changed healthcare, I changed education, I changed relationships, I changed the ability to work in the middle of nowhere. There's solutions all around us. You just had to be willing to make the company that wanted to run the fiber optic line that was supposed to do it 20 years ago, make them angry.
Yeah, yeah.
And just step in and say, look, I have a charity that paid for this. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
There's solutions all around us. Think like a revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do we get you to be the governor of Arizona? That's the key. My wife loves you. We share the same sentiment, but my wife is like, he is such a brilliant man. He's so smart. You got to have him on the show. And every time I meet you, I'm impressed. And just the heart that you have, especially with adopting those kids.
Oh,
and I'm not trying to say that you are too mature to have those kids.
Oh, no.
But I got a 5-year-old and I'm 38 years old and I'm burnt out. So, the heart to say I'm willing to take on the sibling of a child I adopted, what was that, 8 years ago, 7 years ago?
Oh, you got to go further than that. We've already figured out, we've screwed up our future retirement. So if you have a couple more kids, we'll just take them. I mean, I got a big house. We can handle it. Look, my job in running for governor, it's like every race. You're going to earn it. You show up everywhere. You tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
You accept you're going to make some people upset because so many of the people out there, even often some of our folks who think they're conservative but don't truly, I think, embrace the true faith of the ideology, want stuff. David, I want you to give me more money for this. And saying, but we don't have more money to hand out. Mm. Matter of fact, our state budget, in many ways, if you really dig into it, I've been memorizing it because that's my idea of light reading. You know, we spent $1 million in flying cars last year. Oh, come on. One-time expenditures we owe the next year. So, and lots of states around the country are now doing this, where they're playing shell games.
Mm.
The federal government's budget is so screwed up, they're going to have to start cutting back the numbers, the money they send to states, because every dime they send to states is borrowed.
Mm-mm.
And that's going to be a problem. If you're living right on the edge on your state, you got to start embracing these disruptions of doing things better, faster, cheaper. I got into this race late. I got angry with Congress because we made a deal with the White House and the leadership that we were going to do another reconciliation bill after we finished the budget one that was going to cut spending. And they broke their promise to me.
Right.
And I was supposed to lead that. So, look, I love them all. I want to strangle them. Remember the Christian I have to love. Are you allowed to have a Christian? Is there such a thing of loving someone Christian while you're strangling them? Because I got to work on that.
Yeah, you can forgive them at the same time. I forgive you. I forgive you.
And so you come home and say, maybe I can save Arizona. Think about some of the crazy things. We're having to close schools, and this is happening all over the country. We have too many school buses. We have too many buildings. We don't have enough kids.
Mm.
Are there certain spots that maybe that's going to have to become senior daycare? A senior center? Think about the assets you have as a society. How do you allocate them to the actual needs you have today, not what our vision was 20 years ago? And that's often one of the things I find. Even yesterday, I did a very technical presentation in southern Arizona where we walked through and just said, look, here's our problems on our budget. Here's things I can do to fix it. But here's the morality of if we do this the right way, we make Arizona's lives better. Arizona was one of the epicenters of inflation. You know, under President Biden, inflation just got absolutely out of control. Now under President Trump, wages are finally going up. But there's such a big gap to make up. Do you realize most working class Arizonans are actually poorer today than they were 5 years ago?
Really?
You want to know why so many people are stressed out of their minds? It's hard to live. It's hard to make your car payment. And the idiot politicians need to start thinking about people and how they're trying to put food on the table, how they're trying to make their car payment, how they're trying to save some money, maybe for a vacation, instead of often talking about the shiny objects that will get us on television tonight and maybe get us plenty of hits on our social media. All right, let me. One thing I'll say is optimism. Every week for the last 15 years, I go on the floor of the House and I do these presentations. Remember, I chaired the Joint Economic Committee. I have all these economists. Sometimes they're hour long, and they're more like an economics lecture. Here's the problem. Here's this. Here's our solutions. When I would do these 10 years ago, I'd get 2,000 people that would look at the YouTube video. I've had some recently getting 2 million views.
Wow.
There are Americans out there willing to give some gray-haired guy an hour of their life to watch a video with lots of charts saying, here's what's going on, here's the truth of the math, and here's a disruptive way we can make it better. What happens when the American people are ready for the things you've talked about for years? Find the morality, embrace the dear Lord, embrace the good, and then deliver on doing it better. And it's I'm incredibly optimistic that the public is way ahead of the political class.
I love that. We could talk for, I don't know, 3 or 4 more hours, which I have to have you back. My wife, she's going to kill me because you're here, and I don't think she know you came to the podcast today. So she's going to kill me. But I think we can come and do this again because I do want to just continue the conversation. You know, obviously, me and my wife, we're going to vote for you.
Thank you.
And we've been voting for you as our congressman. And I think that I love your heart. I love the way you think. It's different than some people, like you say, that want to be clickbaity and whatever topics on the Fox News or wherever they can spew these things. And not necessarily saying it's wrong. It's just there's more to it than just that.
You got to make up mind. Entertainment we all need. On occasion, we need to embrace our intellect and make life better.
Right. 100%. But I got something for my audience. I'm going to ask you, because we do a show, and then for my members, we do just a Q&A, like a quick question thing. So I'm going to ask you some fun questions. My producer created these questions, so if they're bad, you can get mad at Grant.
I'll blame him. All right, let's have some fun here.
And I hope that I can. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look through these real quick so I can make sure they flow really well, and then I'm gonna ask you a couple questions.
It's gonna be rapid
fire.
I'm insane. I'll answer anything.